Pat McGrath Labs shirt is on, so you know I'm in business. Hi, hello, we're going to do look number 7. This is going to be the final look in my week of Luminous Legends here on my channel. I have already done 6 looks with this palette, and if you include the look that I did, including the Celestial Jade duo for my original video, we've actually already done 7, so this is going to be even the 8th look, really depending on how you look at it. But just to give you a breakdown of how this video is going to go, so today I'm going to do one final look with the palette. I'm going to try to use some of the eyeshadows that I haven't really used before. And I'm also going to do a couple of additional comparison swatches that have been requested by some of you. I've already done actually across the whole series and the original video a number of comparison swatches. So if you're interested in any additional comparisons, you can always go check out these videos. And of course, at the end of the video, I'm also going to give you my full rounded thoughts on this palette. As with all the other videos so far, I've already done my base makeup, and I'm just going to do blush, bronzer and highlighter with you because I think a lot of you appreciate seeing how I combine these sort of products together. So for my bronzer today, I'm going to take the Sunkissed Glow Bronzer from Charlotte Tilbury in the shade medium. This was a limited edition release. Was it limited edition? Am I lying? Are these still available? I don't know. These are cream bronzers that were released several years ago, and I actually really enjoy them. I don't have a lot from Charlotte Tilbury, but what I do have I actually quite like. And since I'm feeling like my skin is a little bit drier again today, I am going for cream products so that I look a bit juicier. For blush, I'm going to take one of Pat's cream blushes. This is in the shade Alluring Nude, which is one of the newer shades that she released over the summer. I'm just going to apply some on my brush. I actually really like these cream blushes. I know that they were not like a super exciting release because she already like had that release last year. We were excited about it last year, and this year she just expanded the range. But even so, I'm actually quite happy with the new colors that I bought, and it is a really good cream blush formula. And then for highlighter, I'm going to just take a good old Divine Rose highlighter, and as you can see, it is no problem to apply a powder blush over the cream products. I always mix and match like that. Lately I've been doing like cream products with cream products and powders with powders, but every now and then I will mix and match like this. So one of the eyeshadows in this palette that I have actually not touched at all yet is this one here. This is the shade Coral Caress, which is one of those formulas that you will either feel indifferent about, or you're going to be like me and you're going to hate it. This is a matte that has shimmer in it. So it is one of those annoying type of formulas which is not really a shimmer, it isn't really a matte either. It doesn't really know what it is, and I don't have patience for eyeshadows that don't know what they are. I'd rather have them be like a satin formula or a straight up metallic formula, but those mattes with shimmers are some of the most horrid things that I've ever tried in makeup. And unfortunately, since last year's holiday collection, I think there was at least one other shade that had that combination of matte with sparkle that I wasn't a huge fan of. But unfortunately, you know, she has decided to keep that formula, so I gotta deal with that. I'm going to put that shade all over my lid because I'm actually quite curious what it will do, and I'm just looking for a brush, I'm sorry. I'm going to pack this on with this brush. It's a fairly fluffy brush because I want to pack and blend at the same time. And this is probably one of the truly like more like pink toned eyeshadows in here. I wouldn't call it a pink. This is more of like your classic coral with gold shimmer in it, but it is the only like true like somewhat more pink eyeshadow in this palette. I feel like all the rest of the shades cannot really be accused of being pink. So I'm just going to put this as a base all over my lid, and I'm going to blend it through the crease. I mean, it is a nice soft eyeshadow, but the thing with an eyeshadow like this is as soon as you start blending, all of that gold shimmer just like flies away, so what's the point? If you apply it over a glitter glue, the matte base will not agree with the glitter glue. It will get all patchy and weird, and it will change color. So you're not really getting the shimmer, you're not really getting the combination of the two, so what is the point? I'm sorry, I have very strong feelings for these mattes with shimmers in them. I'm essentially using this eyeshadow more as like a matte than really a shimmer. That's how I really approach these eyeshadows that are mattes loaded with shimmers and glitters. I approach them as matte eyeshadows because I know as soon as I blend them out, most of the shimmer is going to fly away. I can confidently say this is my least favorite shade in this palette. I don't like the formula. I don't like, well, it's not that I don't like the color, it's just such an overdone color. Like, we've seen this color so many times before that it really doesn't add anything to anyone's collections. I am now going to take a tiny bit of glitter glue to apply in my inner corners and all over my lid, and then I am going to apply a shimmery eyeshadow over top. But again, I'm warning you, don't try this eyeshadow with glitter glue to make the shimmer stick, because the matte base of that shadow is going to react with the glitter glue, and you're going to get some really weird effects going on your lid. So yeah, you've been warned. I'm going to apply a little bit of that tacky base over the pink, and then I'm just going to use my fingers, and I am going to take a little bit of this gold shade here, the shade Golden Muse, because I am actually very curious how this is going to go all over the lid, somewhat more of an accent shade, because it is very chunky. And I think out of all the eyeshadows in this palette that could be accused of creating a lot of texture, this is the one. I think this eyeshadow is very prone to creating texture because it has these like large flakes. It's basically like, it feels like a cream, and it bunches up really fast. So with an eyeshadow like this, you have to be extra mega careful. And I do actually feel like your fingers are probably your best friend if you want to apply an eyeshadow like this, because you have the best chance of spreading out those flakes on your skin. I don't know that the brush is going to work out all that well. I don't really imagine another eyeshadow other than Golden Muse itself as an inner corner highlight for this look, so I'm just going to apply a few flakes of this here in the tear ducts. And I am actually thinking about maybe doing a little bit of a liner, like a So this is exactly what happens when you take this with a brush, and I probably chose the wrong brush for this, but I dug into this eyeshadow and I think I picked up a really large flake, and I got a huge gunk here of this in my inner corners. Okay, so you have to be really like extra careful with this shade. You know what, I'm just going to take my fingers and I'm going to apply a few flakes of this here in the inner corner, and then I'm going to try to distribute those with the brush. I can see how this eyeshadow is going to be problematic and annoy a lot of people, because it literally behaves like a densely packed cream. I don't know whether you can see here in the pan how where I have dug with the brush from Sonia G here, and it's my fault that I took this brush. I think it's the wrong brush for this, but I'm too lazy and I wanted to use this brush for both my inner corners as well as the little liner moment that I'm thinking about. And this brush from Sonia seemed like such a good solution. It was not. I think it's better if you take a fluffier sort of brush or a flat shader brush to apply the inner corner with Golden Muse, because I've done that in the past and that is fine, but just don't take anything like this which will pick up too many flakes of this Golden Muse shade. Anyway, like I said, I am thinking that maybe Bordeaux Brilliance here would make a beautiful liner moment. So I'm going to take a little bit of this eyeshadow, and I'm thinking if I want to do this dry or I want to wet the brush. You know, let's start dry, and then I will see if I want to wet the brush later to go over with a wet brush. Because I think it might make for a beautiful, you know, subtle wing here with this look. Friendly Mona has joined us. Okay, this is quite subtle. I'm not sure that I want to intensify this. Do I want to intensify this? You know what, let's try it for science. I am going to load the brush with a little bit more of Bordeaux Brilliance, and then I'm going to wet my brush with just a bit of Fix Plus, and I'm going to go over. Okay, that does actually intensify the color a bit. I'm going to clean off the small brush really well, and finally I'm going to go into... Oh, I've been lying to you. This shade is called Rose Afterglow. It's not called Coral Caress. This one is called Coral Caress, and that's the one I want to use now on my lower lashes. It's more of like a subtle terracotta coral shade. I quite like this shade actually. So I'm going to run that here on the lower lashes as a final touch to this look. For a minute there, I wasn't sure we were going to make this look work, but I think a bit of mascara and lipstick really helped to bring it together. So here is a little bit of sparkle moment. I think there's no doubt in the universe that Golden Muse is a very sparkly shade, albeit a bit problematic in terms of its texture. Easily my least favorite look that I have done with this palette. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that compared to the other looks I did, it is my least favorite. What can I say? I paired it with Velvet Blush from Lisa Eldridge because, as I mentioned in my previous video when I did a look with Bordeaux Brilliance, it struck me as to how much more of a rosewood hue that eyeshadow takes on once it's on the eyes, and I thought it would pair perfectly, you know, the liner moment together with the lipstick. And I do enjoy the final result. It's not a bad look, it's just that out of all the 7 looks that I've done so far, this is my least favorite. If I had to do sort of like a ranking, or at least a top 3, I think my personal top 3 would be absolutely look number 1 would be my favorite. Then the look I did with Honey Nectar and Bordeaux Brilliance, I think that's my second favorite look. And after that I would rank my, you know, the one with the purple and the orchid shade. So the layering I did with this one and this one, that one I think would be my third favorite look. You know, the other 4 looks, they were fine, but I don't feel about them one way or the other. They were just, you know, nice looks. So with that, we complete the 7 looks that I am going to do with this palette. From now on, you're going to see it probably heavily featured in pet pairing videos, because of course there are a couple of eyeshadows in here that I think would be absolutely perfect for that. Let's move to more relevant topics at hand and do a couple of extra comparison swatches that have been requested by some of you. First, I'm going to dig out my Utopian Dream palette. We're going to swatch this shade here. That's something with Amethyst. Astral Amethyst Moon. And I'm going to swatch that against Orchid Opulence from the Luminous Legends palette. So that is this one here in the smack middle. I can completely see the similarities. I think they are probably going to be very similar eyeshadows, just in a different formula, because of course the one in Utopian Dream is in her Astral like Blitz formula, so it's a baked eyeshadow. So here are the 2 shades next to each other. Again, I feel like you're just getting a more amped up, you know, brighter version with Luminous Legends. So this is the shade in Luminous Legends, that's Orchid Opulence, and here you have something with Amethyst Moon. I cannot remember the name. So they are very similar. I think the base tones and the sparkle are rather similar. So again, as with the other comparison swatches, I feel like with the baked formula, you're just getting a more not necessarily toned down version in terms of the sparkle. I think in terms of the glitter, you're getting a much more amped up version with the Blitz Astral formula, but in terms of the color, the opacity of the color, you're getting much less of an intensity, which is why a formula like this can be used on the lid on its own, or it can be used for layering purposes, or at least it can be used for layering purposes a little bit easier than a more opaque formula like the one that is present in Luminous Legend. So I think the idea of these eyeshadows is the same, and you could almost consider them to be dupes of each other, in the sense that they are the same eyeshadow but then executed into very different formulas, which is why the delivery that you get from them is rather different, but very similar idea. A couple of you actually requested for me to swatch the lilac shade in Mothership 10 Molded Seduction, which is, let me turn this around, this eyeshadow over here, which of course I don't know the name of anymore, Astro Lilac Aura, next to of course our favorite Platinum Lilac. So we're talking about this one here. I don't expect them to be super similar, if I'm being completely honest with you, because the shade from Molded Seduction is a very like fairy pastel color, whereas the one in Moonlit really isn't all that pastel. Well, it has a pastel quality to it, but here are the 2 shades next to each other. So this is Moonlit and this is Mothership 10. I want to point out Mothership 10, no one is baked in here. But here we have Platinum Lilac, and here is the shade from Moonlit Seduction, which of course I forgot the name of already, G. Mariam Astral Lilac Aura. So as you can see, they are, I mean, there is a similarity in the sense that they're both like this beautiful like lilac shade, but the shade in Moonlit Seduction is much softer in both the sparkle and the base color and everything. Platinum Lilac is a very intense shade. Very impactful in terms of the finish, in terms of the color, in terms of what you're going to end up on the lid with. This is a much softer formula that again will serve very nicely as like a topper moment, or will create like a very fairy dusting like effect if you apply it on your lids. I think on the lid these two shades are extremely different from each other. And the final comparison swatch is actually not going to be with the Mega but with the Celestial Jade Duo. One of you requested a comparison of the green that is present in this palette with the green that was present in Starstruck Splendor. Now, we've already established in the first video that I made that the Celestial Jade palette is in fact pretty much a dupe for Citrine Envy from the Celestial Odyssey palette. So if you didn't watch that video, you can go and watch it, because I have a comparison there for that. But I think the person who requested this comparison was probably asking for a comparison with this shade here from Starstruck Splendor. This is the shade Mythic Majesty, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I really love the shade Mythic Majesty, but it is a completely different eyeshadow. It is much cooler in tone, much more blue in tone, whereas Celestial Jade clearly has yellow-green tones to it. So here you have the shade from Starstruck Splendor, and this is Celestial Jade from the new Quints. Well, not Quints, Duos. And I believe this concludes the comparison swatch portion of this video, and now I can finally give you like my full rounded thoughts on the Luminuos Legends Mega Palette by Pat McGrath Labs for Holiday 2024. Now, I think it is clear from all the looks that I did that I'm really enjoying this palette. I think you need to look at this palette release from two different perspectives. You can view this palette as something coming into the collection of someone who already has a lot of Pat McGrath Labs eyeshadows, and you can view this from the perspective of someone who doesn't. I think if you have a lot of Pat McGrath Labs eyeshadows, this palette is bringing very little newness in terms of like undertones of eyeshadows into your collection. So the only thing that you really need to feel very strongly about is the Quint formula. If you love the Quint formula and you would like to have a lot of these counterparts of eyeshadows that you already have from Pat McGrath Labs in her Quint formula, then I think you're going to have a lovely time with this palette, because as you also saw from all the looks that I created with it, it is a rather versatile palette. There are a lot of different tones of eyeshadows in here. You can combine them in all sorts of different ways. You can create a whole lot of variety of different looks. They're going to look very different from each other. So no one can blame this palette that it is not going to be versatile. I mentioned a couple of times though that in terms of like the tones of the eyeshadows that are present in here, a very few of these are going to be really unique to your collection. I think the most unique eyeshadows in here are, let's say you don't have Bronze Bliss, then Lunar Luxury is going to be something that's really going to be a showstopper for you. This beautiful blue shade here, the shade Moonlit Mist, which after having used, I would consider more of like an ethereal eyeshadow that you can use on its own, but also as a topper, because it seems to have a bit of a like a translucency to the base color, which makes it very interesting. I think if you don't have Honey Nectar from last year, you're really going to love Honey Nectar. It is such a beautiful, difficult to describe neutral. Obviously, you're going to absolutely fall in love with Platinum Lilac because it is a stunning eyeshadow. I personally think this one here, the shade Stardust Peony, is just absolutely beautiful, even if it doesn't come across on camera. One of the best eyeshadows in this whole palette is Sable Seductress. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful, stunning undertone of brown. I think I'm going to pull out this palette a lot to just be using Sable Seductress here. I love the undertone of this eyeshadow. And of course, we focus quite a bit on the metallic eyeshadows in here because the metallic eyeshadows are the ones that make, you know, our heart beat faster. But there is something to be said about how exceptional the matte formula in this format is. They're really beautiful eyeshadows. They blend super easily. They look super flattering on the lids. You can apply them a bit more sheerly. You can build them up. I really think they're a very versatile formula, and I really love the tones that are present in this palette, like for the most part. I love Sable Seductress, Sun-Kissed Rose. has been slightly toned down from its terracotta undertone from the previous palette where it was present, which is Sunset Romance. I don't know whether that's just due to like batch to batch differences or they've just decided to tone down the terracotta-ness of that shade. I'm not entirely sure. I do like this shade here. It's a beautiful, like more coral leaning terracotta. I've made my feelings for this eyeshadow pretty clear. I don't like this eyeshadow. When it freaking decides what it wants to be, a shimmer or a matte, it can give me a call. But before that, our friendship is off the table. And for the Pat McGrath Labs aficionados out there who would like to get really nerdy about the different like formulas, I think it is worth mentioning that even though these are all the Queen formula, I'm referring specifically to the metallic eyeshadows in here, even though they're all in the Queen formula, they are not all the same. Like we've noticed already with previous releases that they are not all, you know, the same, but in this specific case there is really like, I think a few, I would say 3 main textures that are present in here. The first one is this more like flaky, like looser flakes, very glittery type eyeshadows, which I would describe, for example, Honey Nectar, Celestial Cerulean, and this Flame Fatale shade to be, and of course our friend Golden Muse is the queen of them all with all the flakes in there that you can barely separate from each other. Then you have the somewhat more smoother but still very creamy and impactful eyeshadows, and in that category I would definitely put Platinum Lilac and Lunar Luxury. And then you have this more smoother finish, which is not as flaky. The glitter size is a little bit smaller and they just look a little bit smoother when you pick them up on your finger. I think you've noticed that. Definitely Orchid Opulence here, Bordeaux Brilliance, I would say this bronzy shade here that I forgot the name of, Gilded Bronze. They're all, also this one here, Stardust Peony, they're all in that like somewhat smoother formula that applies less as chunks but more as like an opaque color and has somewhat finer glitter particles in it. And I think possibly this blue one here, the Moonlit Mist shade, that one possibly belongs more in that category. This shadow here, while it looks quite like blue, I feel like I said before, has a bit of a translucency to it, which is why it's not as intensely bright as, for example, the blue that was in one of the Star Wars Queens that we compared in one of the first videos that I did for this week. So this is everything that I have to say for this palette from the perspective of someone who owns a lot of Pat McGrath eyeshadows. I clearly love this palette, I'm going to enjoy using it a lot, but I adore the Queen formula. So like I said, if you're a Pat McGrath Labs lover, I think you need to think really hard about this one. Do you really need it? Does it really bring something new to you? Do you like the Queen formula? If you are completely new to Pat McGrath Labs, or if you don't have much from Pat McGrath Labs, I think you're really going to love this palette, because I think this is a beautiful release and I would definitely recommend it given the considerations that I mentioned before, depending on which perspective you are coming from. When it comes to the Celestial Jade Duo, I haven't of course used it all that much, and having Citrine Envy in my collection kind of already means that I have these eyeshadows. It's just that I have it in a slightly different formula, so I'm not really sure that this was a completely necessary purchase for me. I haven't even put this eyeshadow on my eyelids just yet because I was focused on the Luminous Legends palette. I didn't want to mix them up too much, but I think now that we're done with that, I might, you know, try mixing the two together a bit more. Maybe we can do a separate video to try to mix these two again. But having Citrine Envy in my collection means that I already know this eyeshadow, I love this eyeshadow. This didn't bring anything new to my Pat McGrath Labs experience. I was hoping for this to have a somewhat different tone compared to Citrine Envy, but unfortunately it doesn't. So there's that. I'm happy to have it in the Queen formula, and this is going to be perfect for traveling, so I could easily take this with me if I'm going somewhere and I would really like to have a green eyeshadow with me, because I do tend to take my Queens with me quite a bit when I travel. Bronze Bliss has been with me for almost every like longer holiday that I've been on for the past couple of years, and since Bronze Bliss is quite neutral, it would be quite lovely to have something like Citrine Envy to complement it. I'm thinking really hard if I covered everything that I wanted to say in this video, and I think I did. If I failed to mention something, we can blame it on my scattered brain. I'm actually quite tired. That's also the reason I didn't post this video yesterday, because yesterday was still a work day. I had an early morning meeting and I knew that if I have to do this video and still go to work, I would be completely destroyed, so I left it to today to, you know, finish off on a day when I have a bit more time. But I think I've covered everything that I wanted to say. In case you have any additional questions, there are some urgent you know, extra swatches that you would like to see, let me know in the comments, or just hit me up on Instagram so that I can immediately send you comparison swatch pictures. Do let me know what you thought about the final look that I created with this palette, what your overall thoughts are now that you have seen the 7 looks. I would love to know what your personal top 3 is out of the 7 looks that I did, because I've seen, you know, some varying opinions in my comments, and I really love seeing that. As usual, thank you so very much for watching, and I can't wait to see you next week when I can finally show you the things that I bought from Prada a couple of weeks ago. I got so distracted by traveling and Pat McGrath Labs Luminuos Legends that I completely, you know, haven't even told you that I got a new quad from Prada and the freaking powder, and I've already used the powder for like several weeks, so I can give you like a review on it. As usual, I got sidetracked and went off on a completely irrelevant tangent. I just wanted to say that we're going to do a look with Prada Beauty next week, so hang in there for that. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!